Have you ever felt like your home was more than just a building? That it held memories, stories, and the spirit of a community? Our story today is about Leo, a young artist living in a building that holds his family's entire history. But when a wealthy developer with cold eyes and even colder plans buys the property, Leo is told he no longer belongs. He has 60 days to leave his home forever. But what she doesn't know is that the building holds a secret that's been forgotten for decades. Before we continue with Leo's story, we would love to know where you are watching from. Please let us know in the comments so we can bring more stories that resonate with you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss our upcoming stories. Now let's dive into the story. The Oakwood Apartments wasn't a fancy place. It was a 3-story brick building nestled on a quiet street that was slowly being surrounded by shiny new glass towers and expensive coffee shops. For Leo, the Oakwood wasn't just an apartment. It was his home. It was the only home he had ever known. His grandmother, Elena, had owned the building for nearly 60 years. She had managed it with a kind heart and a gentle smile. She knew every tenant by name, celebrated their birthdays, and mourned their losses. The Oakwood was more than a property to her. It was a community, a family. After she passed away 2 years ago, the building was sold as part of her estate. Leo, a talented artist who worked with recycled materials, continued to live in his small, sun-filled apartment. He paid his rent to a faceless management company, but the spirit of his grandmother lived on in the creaky wooden floors and the laughter that echoed in the hallways. He knew Mrs. Gable on the first floor, who had lived there for 40 years and still baked cookies for everyone during the holidays. He knew the Rodriguez family on the second floor, whose 2 young children would run up to him to show him their latest drawings. This building was a living, breathing piece of his grandmother's legacy. Then, the letters appeared. They were slipped under every door. The crisp white envelope felt cold and impersonal. Inside, the message was simple and brutal. The Oakwood Apartments had been sold to Reed Development. All current leases were being terminated. Tenants had 60 days to vacate the premises. A wave of panic spread through the building. 60 days? Where would they go? The new buildings in the neighborhood were asking for 3 times the rent. Mrs. Gable was on a fixed income. The Rodriguez family was saving up to buy a small house, but they weren't ready yet. A week later, the new owner, Ms. Evelyn Reed, called a mandatory tenant meeting in the lobby. She arrived in a sleek black car, dressed in a sharp designer suit that probably cost more than 3 months of Leo's rent. Her hair was perfectly styled, and her smile never reached her cold, calculating eyes. She stood before the anxious tenants, holding a tablet. "Good afternoon," she began, her voice crisp and devoid of any warmth. "I am Evelyn Reed, the new owner of this property. As you know, Reed Development has acquired this lot. We have exciting plans to build a modern luxury condominium complex called the Oakwood Rise." She tapped her tablet, and a digital image of a sterile glass and steel building appeared. It looked nothing like their home. Mr. Rodriguez raised his hand. "Ms. Reed, 60 days is not enough time. We have children. We have jobs. We can't just pick up and leave." Ms. Reed gave him a dismissive glance. "The 60-day notice is a legal formality, and it is more than generous. My advice is to start looking for new accommodations immediately. The market is quite competitive." Her eyes scanned the small crowd and landed on Leo. He was standing in the back, wearing his paint-splattered jeans and a simple t-shirt. She looked him up and down, a small condescending smirk playing on her lips. "You, for example," she said, pointing a perfectly manicured finger at him. "An artist, I presume? This neighborhood is changing. It's becoming a place for professionals, for people who can afford a certain lifestyle. Frankly, the kind of world we are building here is not for everyone." Leo felt his cheeks flush with anger and embarrassment. "My grandmother owned this building. She believed in community, not just profit. She believed in providing people with a safe and affordable home." Ms. Reed let out a short, humorless laugh. "Your grandmother was a poor businesswoman then. This land is a gold mine. She was sitting on a fortune and chose to run a charity." She took a step closer to him, lowering her voice so only those nearby could hear. "Let's be realistic. You paint with trash and live in a tiny apartment. You simply can't afford to live in the neighborhood I'm building. It's time to accept that and move on." Her words hit Leo like a physical blow. He had nothing to say back. She was right about one thing. He couldn't afford the new neighborhood. He felt completely defeated. That night, the building was quiet. The usual sounds of life were replaced by a heavy silence of despair. Leo was packing his grandmother's old photos into a box when Mrs. Gable knocked on his door. Her eyes were red from crying. "Oh, Leo," she said softly, "your grandmother would have been heartbroken to see this. That woman, she has ice in her veins." They sat together in his small living room, and Mrs. Gable shared stories about his grandmother. "Elena fought so hard for this place," she recalled. "Back in the 70s, a big company wanted to buy this whole block to build a supermarket. She went to every city meeting. She wrote letters. She never gave up." Suddenly, Mrs. Gable's eyes lit up with a memory. "You know, she kept everything, all her papers and records. She had a little office in the basement storage room. Number 4. After she passed, no one ever cleared it out. The key is still on the hook in the laundry room." A tiny spark of hope flickered inside Leo. The next day, he found the old, rusty key and opened the door to storage room number 4. It was filled with dusty boxes, old furniture, and the faint smell of his grandmother's perfume. He spent hours going through old files, finding tax records and sentimental letters. He was about to give up when he found a thick, leather-bound folder at the bottom of a heavy metal box. He blew the dust off the cover. The label, written in his grandmother's elegant handwriting, read, "The Oakwood, Our History." Inside were the original blueprints from 1928, the deed of sale from when she bought it in 1962, and then he found it. Tucked inside a yellowed envelope was a document from the city's Cultural Heritage Commission, dated 1978. His heart started to pound. He read the words carefully. Following his grandmother's passionate campaign to save the block, the city had officially designated the Oakwood Apartments as a protected historic cultural landmark due to its unique pre-war architecture and its role as a community anchor for over 50 years. The designation legally prohibited any owner from demolishing the structure or making significant changes to its exterior without a special review and approval from the Commission, an approval that was almost never given for buildings in good condition. This document had been forgotten for over 40 years. It never showed up in a standard title search because it was filed in the city's historical archives, not with the property records. Ms. Reed hadn't seen it. Her lawyers hadn't seen it. But it was real, and it was legally binding. The next morning, Ms. Reed was standing outside the building with 2 architects, pointing at the windows and talking loudly about demolition plans. Several tenants watched sadly from their windows. Leo walked out the front door, the leather folder in his hand. "Ms. Reed," he said, his voice clear and steady. She turned, annoyed. "What is it now? I hope you're not here to beg for more time." "No," Leo said calmly. "I'm here to inform you that you won't be demolishing anything." He opened the folder and handed her the official document from 1978. She snatched it from him, her eyes scanning the first few lines before she let out a cynical laugh. "This is a joke. Some old piece of paper from the 70s? It means nothing." "Actually," a new voice said, it was her lawyer, who had been quietly looking over her shoulder. He pushed his glasses up his nose, his face suddenly pale. "Actually, Evelyn, it means everything." He took the document from her and read it again, more carefully this time. "This is an official city landmark designation. It's legally binding. We can't touch the exterior of the building. Demolition it's impossible." Evelyn Reed's face went from smug to confused, to pure, unfiltered rage. She stared at the paper, then at Leo, then back at her lawyer. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. For the first time, the powerful, untouchable woman was speechless. She had bought a building she couldn't tear down. Her multi-million-dollar luxury condo project was dead before it even began. Leo looked at her, not with hatred, but with a sense of justice. "My grandmother was a good businesswoman," he said quietly. "She just invested in something you don't understand. She invested in people." He turned and walked back into the Oakwood apartments, leaving Ms. Reed standing silently on the sidewalk, holding a piece of paper that represented the victory of community over greed. The news spread through the building like wildfire, and for the first time in weeks, the sound of cheering and happy tears filled the halls of their home. So that was the story of Leo, and how a forgotten piece of paper saved not just a building, but a community and a legacy. Evelyn Reed learned a hard lesson that day, that the true value of a place isn't always in the land it sits on, but in the history and the lives it holds within its walls. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What do you think is more important in our cities today? Preserving history and community, or making way for new developments? And if this story resonated with you, please do hit the subscribe button. It's completely free for you, but it helps our channel a lot and allows us to keep bringing you more stories like this one. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day.